before I forget. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining our 16th episode of the mentorship series for the Rising Smart Water Professionals. Welcome to all the old faces in the crowd and to any new faces out there. Please don't be shy. Drop your name in the chat, introduce yourself, let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from, and all of that stuff. So just a few quick things before we get into tonight's main event. This event is being hosted by SWAN, the Smart Water Networks Forum, a global nonprofit which is the leading hub for smart water and wastewater sectors, and the Rising Smart Water Professionals, or RiSWP, SWAN's 35 and under young professional community for those interested in joining or advancing the smart water sector. Just a few quick resources we wanted to share with you all. If you're trying to advance yourself in the smart water sector, please check out RiSWP's career portal. Lots of great resources, advice, webinars, links for job boards, and lots of great resources to kickstart your career or make a shift in your career in the smart water sector. Speaking of careers, if anyone out there is looking to make a change, or maybe you know someone who's looking for their next challenge in the smart water sector, our SWAN family is looking to grow, and we are hiring a part-time project managers for the Americas Alliance. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out directly to myself. And we'll also drop the application link here in the chat if you or anyone is interested. We'd love to see your applications. Also, just something for you guys to keep an eye out. I get a lot of emails from all the RiSWPers asking me, like, how can they get more involved? You guys are so great. We really want to be part of this community. And we have a really fantastic first cohort of ambassadors whose term is, slowly coming to an end. So we just wanted to let you guys know that on December 1st, we'll be launching the applications for the next RiSWP ambassador cohort. So again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. It's a really, really great leadership opportunity as well. And then I'm going to hand it over to Billy, the chair of our RiSWP leadership team, and also the host of our mentorship series. And he can tell you about what's happening tonight.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sandy. Really appreciate it. Today, we're all focused on utility innovation. So here we have a panel, a 4-person panel from utilities in the US, in Europe. Oh, and I guess before I get to that, there was a very crucial slide. Can you go back to it?
We'll go back. The slide was in the wrong order. Sorry, guys. We made a really, really big announcement today. Yeah. We hope that all of you can join us in Glasgow, May 9th to 11th for the 13th annual SWAN conference. We're super excited. It's going to be really amazing. We hope that all of you can join. Stay tuned for the call for abstracts, the theme announcement, as well as ticket sales coming up soon. And now, off to Billy in the mentorship series.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Yeah, so we got the utility innovation panel. Here we have Anna Crisp, Joukje Keuning from Vitens, Taylor Winchell from Denver Water, Ariel Atkinson from Southern Nevada Water Authority. And so we've got 2 European utilities represented, 2 US utilities represented, and some just amazing people on this panel. So just to do some brief bios and brief intros before we get the conversation started. Anna Crisp is the project and engagement manager at Anglian Water. Her role includes driving innovation projects and new ways of working within Anglian Water's shop window. The shop window is a physical and a virtual place where the utility can accelerate innovation, improve assets and processes, and develop their people, resulting in tangible change and benefit for all. Joukje Keuning is the program manager for Infra 2025 at Vitens. The Infra 2025 program is designed to scale smart grid solutions across Vitens. Innovation typically starts with just a good idea, but this program is based on an approved business case. So Vitens scales digital solutions to improve the process of water purification and distribution based on clearly articulated benefits that outweigh the cost of operation. Taylor Winchell works in climate change adaptation and water supply planning programs at Denver Water. where he focuses on translating climate change threats to on-the-ground adaptation efforts. Taylor additionally has experience in the environmental nonprofit sector and is working on water-focused water-focused international development projects. Lastly, we have Dr. Ariel Atkinson, who is a process engineer in Applied Water Quality Research Group at the Southern Nevada Water Authority in Las Vegas. So Ariel works with a range of innovative technologies, from UV LEDs to nanobubbles, from bench to pilot to full scale. Most recently, she led the installation and evaluation of the first municipal scale UV LED reactor in Las Vegas. So thank you everyone for coming. It's great to have everyone here. And so Sandy, can you stop sharing for a moment? We can open it up for everyone to see their videos. So, you know, we've got this great panel. We've got a lot of different innovators in the water sector, but each of them kind of have a different focus. So Anna, first starting with you, can you describe kind of your approach to innovation? And can you explain what this idea of the shop window at Anglian Water is all about?
Thanks, Billy. Yeah, of course. And thank you for the introduction. And obviously, it's great to be here this afternoon. I think the easiest way to kick off is sort of talk about what the shop window was and what we're trying to achieve and develop and grow into. Everyone thinks that we clean windows. We don't do that. The name shop window is probably a good kickoff point, really. It's well-known practice if you're in retail that you put your best stuff in your front window, and that's how you attract people in, and that's how you'll get people into your business to work with and do different things and work differently. So that's where the name came from. But it encompasses so much more in terms of what we're trying to achieve at Anglian Water. Initially, the shop window, when I joined, was in a sort of state of transition. We were previously very focused on sort of test bedding technology. We were working with a number of different stakeholders, suppliers. I think we had close to 300 projects in our folders, all in flight. We were working with plus 300 people, partners in that space, very much to achieve a sort of aspirational vision of what a future water company might look like in 20 to 30 years' time. So we had these really great aspirational goals, like, you know, chemical-free water and you know, zero pollutions in the future, which were great. They housed that initial the initial shop window strategy and what we were aiming for. I think, along with a lot of successes that we saw through that, one of which being smart metering, actually. So that all was born out of the shop window, a very small kind of town in England. I know there's probably international people on the call, so just a small town in England was where smart metering was born from, and the learnings were carried forward into what was known as our sort of rollout plan now, which yeah, I think we're putting in kind of close to 2,000 meters per day across the region, and we are a big region in the UK. We are the largest in terms of the UK water utilities. So that was a success, but we also had lots of lessons, as you do. And I think the lessons we picked up on, and that's when I joined Anglian Water, was in this transition of, we seemed to be missing the mark in terms of that huge number of projects we were doing. A lot of them weren't getting to scale, and they weren't getting into sort of the embedded fabric of Anglian Water. We were kind of shelving them and being like, cool, we learned some stuff, we kind of like that thing. And that seems to be a common problem across a lot of utilities. It's at least a lot of companies, I guess. It's almost like this desert of desolation where you're running projects and you haven't really thought about scale, and you haven't really thought about how you're going to embed it in the company. And I know Joukje from Vitens is looking at this very much so from a benefits realization perspective. If that's all really clear at the front of any project or any initiative or anything that you're trying to implement into a business, then it really helps in terms of getting it into the ways of working and really effectively changing your operating model as a utility. So we've taken a couple of maturity steps over the past 12 months. We've adopted what's known as an incubator framework, which a lot of tech companies use that terminology, but in essence, we've sort of tailored it to Anglian Water. try to make it bespoke to us. Incubation is essentially taking something and already testing it at a system level, so you can start to understand the impact of that intervention already at a sizable sort of level. You're not just doing it in a corner in isolation from the rest of the business. And really what we've wrapped around that in terms of processes to innovation is looking really closely at benefits, looking at capabilities that the business is trying to develop, and then wrapping it in change management. So the shop window is very much about people. It's very much about people and process, and probably less so about technology now. We're trying to move away from that validation of just testing tech and looking at how we bring change to our people and how best to do that. So that's where we're at in terms of the shop window and the new sort of strategy that we're trying to implement and the processes that come with that. I'm currently responsible for driving smart initiatives into the shop window. And a lot of that focuses on, as mentioned, that capability-based planning. So, where can we improve near real-time capability within our business, and what projects lean into that? And then how do we bring that to life in the shop window? And how do we take that to our front line or to our IS department or to our change managers? And so it's been great because my work is just really cross-cutting. I'm working with every corner of the business and under really exciting sort of ways of working that are already bringing positive change. We're seeing some great success. So I hope that kind of answers some of it.
Yes, yeah, all of that and more. That was amazing. I mean, I feel like the level of maturity of the shop window in the innovation approach at Anglian Water, it is not really like anything that I've experienced in working with a lot of different utilities. There's just such amazing history there, an amazing scale of how large the organization is, and there's no question that I think there's a lot of people out there that have a ton to learn from this program. And it sounds like part of that knowledge sharing is already going on. Joukje, I know your role at Vitens is similar. There's some overlap with Anna's, and that there's cross-pollination going on. So Joukje, where do you see the overlap? Where do you see kind of differences?
Yeah, I guess the overlap is there where we in the past we experimented a lot, looking at new techniques, saying yes it worked, but then it stopped. And right now we really want to use what we do, what we think are the best solutions. So it is implementing the solutions. This is a big similarity and overlap, and also to make this work, you have to the technique is just the first step, and it's maybe it's the easiest step, getting this technique in, but getting your employees, your colleagues to really use it, this is the main step. So it's a huge business change part, and I know that within Anglian this is also a big issue. So I guess there's much overlap over there, and it's really needed because within Vitens, I guess it already started, and then within the next few years, a third of our technical employees is retiring. So we need to provide the new people, the new colleagues, with tools to do their job. When we call an older colleague in the middle of the night that we have a burst somewhere out there, then he just knows, oh, you have to close this valve and open this valve, and then our customers get water again. But the new people are not going to learn this by heart as the old people did. So we need to build tools to make it possible for them to do their job. And in this program, like Anna said, we have lots of projects, but we try to put them together in 6 projects, 6 bigger projects. So we are building 3 digital twins. We have a digital twin for the production plants. That's about the quality of the water. We call this our SLIM program. We are building our own digital twin distribution. So then you get insight in your how much water is flowing into your distribution area and how high the pressure is. And you can try solutions that you think of in a virtual environment instead of in the real world. So you know what you can on beforehand you can look what the effect is of closing or opening a valve, and then you can tell the people out in the fields to do what's the best solution. And we have a digital twin for a whole distribution area. There's almost always several production plants in a distribution area. So this is about energy optimization. Then we have our smart meter projects. We are not as far as Anglian, so this is not the same. You are rolling out lots of meters for the normal customers. We have a project for our small business customers, and are experimenting in one city with smart meters for normal customers. And then we have condition-based maintenance, and this is also quite an overlap with Anglian water. So.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Joukje. So, Taylor, to shift a little bit, I think your role is more focused on kind of the fundamental science, more on a technical role about water supply management, water resources management. So, in your role, how do you translate that science into actionable decisions at Denver Water?
Yeah, thanks, Billy, for the question, and thanks for having me here today. Good to see everybody. And yeah, so I work both kind of on the technical aspects and then across kind of what Anna was talking about too on that people and processes aspects throughout the utility. And I actually really like how she framed that, innovation at a utility isn't necessarily just about, or probably really anywhere, but I think it's especially applicable for a utility. It's not just about new technology, but really changing those processes and how people approach things at a utility. So one of our main messages at Denver Water that we communicate is that climate change really impacts all aspects of a utility, all business functions of a utility. So operations and maintenance, watershed management, our finance department, our asset managers, our engineering team, our water supply managers. And so it's not just one, if we can figure out how to have a secure water supply in the future, then we're good. We really need to communicate this message across the entire utility. And so we refer to that as like mainstreaming climate change adaptation throughout the utility. And we use climate science and climate projections and climate modeling really as a guide to help communicate that message. And also as a guide to let people know that the future really is uncertain and we don't know exactly how climate change is going to come to fruition. And the science isn't going to tell us exactly what's going to happen. And it can be a good guide, and it can help us understand the threats we might face in the future that we've never faced before, and then really use that in our planning. So like, for example, we did a couple years ago, a really large tabletop exercise at Denver Water focused around climate change threats, where we brought, again, different parts of Denver Water into this tabletop exercise. So our finance division, our watershed management, our water distribution team, our water treatment team, and we communicated both climate science and the threats that come out of that climate change science to these different departments, and really got their perspective on how these threats impact the work that they do, impacts they've already seen from climate change. And so a really cool outcome that came out of that I liked was our water treatment team, after that, came up with an entire kind of action game plan for how to run our treatment system under extreme droughts that we've never experienced before, and extreme wildfires in our system that we've never seen before. And so again, these are both climate change threats that then were translated into operations plans, again, changing kind of those processes that the utility has. So again, our main kind of approach is using this climate science to communicate threats across the entire organization and get everybody thinking about this, not just our water supply manager, not just me who works directly in climate adaptation, but the people throughout the entire utility.
That's fascinating, Taylor. I had no idea that it was so organizational and that you weren't just focused on, what are the levels of the reservoirs, what do we project them to be? Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So Ariel, going to you, you're a process engineer focused on advancing the ways that we treat water. So what are the hurdles that you face in kind of scaling up technologies that you look at, UV LED, nanobubbles, from the laboratory to actually implementing that at a full-scale treatment plant?
That's a really good question. By the way, I really appreciate everyone's answers to the last couple of questions. It really encompasses a lot of my sort of thoughts as well at SNWA, how important it is for like a cultures organization involving people at different, levels within the organization, having purpose to sort of your innovative solutions. And I think that's a really big one is, you don't go out, with an idea. You don't start with, at least from my perspective, you don't start with an idea, you start with a problem or, something that you're anticipating that we need to adapt for, like climate change is a really big one here in Las Vegas, just like at Denver Water that, we have to address with new innovative solutions because we haven't had to, sort of tackle these new emerging issues before. So communicating that sort of purpose across the organization as well as outside of our organization is really important. And that communication is really important with everyone within the organization in order to have sort of buy-in. Everyone needs to sort of understand, why are we doing this? Because if people within the organization don't understand why we're doing this, it's really hard for them to really want to put forth effort to make something work, right? So really emphasizing that need and purpose, involving people, like I said, at the different levels in the decisions that you're making, like I don't know what it's like to be, a well field operator. So I need to have their opinions, on before we make decisions. And I think that really is one of the big things that makes our projects successful is that we, hear all these different perspectives, at the different steps within incorporating new technology within our organization. So that's more of the, sort of organizational challenges, communication and collaboration, but also, along those same lines, having a good culture. We actually have, innovation is built into our strategic plan. And so that is one of our big, 5 focuses for the organization. And that really helps, our efforts. And then in terms of the technical side, I think making those steps, we have pilot facilities. So we go from bench and then we go to pilot and then we go to full scale, and just sort of thinking about, all the different aspects you possibly can and seeing what those problems are or, what you need to change in the process at those smaller scales before bringing it to full scale. But of course, there's always going to be, technical hurdles at full scale that you didn't anticipate at each of those scales. And it's just being adaptive and, again, having the buy-in from the organization really helps you be able to solve those sort of problems and make the project successful.
Great. I love how this is all tying together. So it's this first set of questions are describing everyone's roles in innovation. And then we kind of already got into this conversation about what drives this culture of innovation. So, I kind of want to shift the discussion to the broader theme of this series, which is mentorship. So a lot of people in the audience might be thinking right now, this is amazing. I love the work that each of you are doing. I could see myself, doing something like that. How do I get there? And, what are the steps that it takes to get in a role like this? And so I'm actually going to start with Taylor on this question. So first, to go to you, are there any things that have helped you to get to where you are in your career now? And then are there any things that you tried to do but didn't help?
Yeah, both good questions, both difficult questions, I think. In terms, well, a very tangible thing that helped me get to where I am in my career now is remaining on email lists. You know, I did like master's program. Actually, Billy and I went to the same graduate school at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And I just never left the email list, the water focus email list that I had been on from there. And that has led to 2 of the 3 jobs that I've had since I left grad school that I wouldn't have otherwise found out about. So those networks have really, you know, helped me and to get to where I am. And the other job I had, I connected with a professor from undergraduate. Remaining engaged and, you know, continuing to follow up on those relationships has really tangibly helped me get to where I am, and really just, you know, pursuing opportunities that seemed interesting to me. Yeah, which sounds like a very kind of trite thing, but it's the truth. When you know, was at a previous job and maybe it didn't feel like it was gonna last forever, really be the end goal, and seeing another opportunity that came up that seemed really interesting, kind of having the courage to go for that, brought me to where I am today. And, you know, yeah, I think that's my advice on that. Yeah.
Okay, so next I'm going to go to Joukje with the same question. So Taylor talked about a couple things that helped him, you know, really staying connected to, you know, his educational institutions, college, maybe grad school. Are there any things that you've done that helped you get you where you are now in your career, or things that you tried that didn't work?
Yeah, as Taylor already said, it's a very good question. I guess the main thing in my career is staying curious. I always, and I am a bit impatient. So after a couple of years, I get bored with my job, and then I think I want to do something else. And because I'm curious and I want to know what other jobs that there are, then yeah, this really helped me a lot. So I did several. I have several different career moves made. I started studying civil engineering, and I really graduated in the purification of drinking water. So this was my first job, being a process engineer and doing all kinds of things with really the purification. And I guess this helped me in the rest of my career because I understand what I'm doing, although I'm not doing it myself anymore. And after that, I became a project manager, where I had to build new production plants or get very big renovations of older production plants. And then I became a team manager. And in the department where I worked, then we started to reorganize a bit. We didn't call it a reorganization, but actually it was, I guess. And it was made me very curious about the business change part. So then I became a business change manager. And then the tools that I'm now delivering within the program are the tools that the new people have to use in this thing. So when the change was a bit sort of complete, yeah, it's never complete, but the big things were done, then I became a program manager. So it's a bit of logical, and I don't know what will be after this. Every couple of years I get a little bit itchy, and then I want to do something different. So one tip, I don't know if you already asked this, but if you've heard from other people who helped you in your career. We had somebody in the board, and she was very encouraging for young women in the company to grow, and always made time for you. So I asked, when I was thinking about, I was a team manager, and then we have the first line managers, and I was doubting this, would this be something for me? And then we had a really good conversation, and for myself, naturally, I I don't. I'm a nice girl, I would say. I don't like to be very harsh on other people or stuff like that. And she just asked me, do you want to show the witch in yourself? Or this was something I always remembered. And when she left, I made a little picture for her with the witch on a broomstick. So this is one of the, sometimes people say things to you that you stay with you and that you remember. So,
That's great. So I guess a couple things. It seemed like both you and Taylor started with a very, technical focus, and then just kept going with what kept you interested, what you were passionate about. And then the other thing was, finding a mentor, someone who could carve out a space that you could talk to them, they could give you feedback, and you could maybe find something about yourself, bring out some part of your personality that you before had kept hidden. Was that kind of
and it's also good when you find out what you don't want to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. So I think that's also kind of a good pivot to this next question, which I'll send over to Anna and Ariel, that's focused on mentorship. So, I think for a lot of people, mentors can be a huge part in their success, finding someone who's a champion for you, who understands you and your long-term goals. So I guess I'll start with Anna. So do you have a mentor, or have you ever had a mentor? And if so, what role did they play in your career?
That's a great question. I think on reflection, Billy, it's interesting in that you probably don't realize that person is in a mentorship role until you reflect later on your sort of career growth and progression. So in my answer in short is I've probably had many, which encompass all my bosses that I've had in all my different jobs. They've all protected my professional growth in some form, which I've really respected and loved. I think right now in my current position, I might be really cheeky and call out Alex Bailey here in terms of mentoring specific projects that we've had to deliver in the last 12 months, mentoring me in terms of, the direction that the company needs to go in, and the benefits that we need to be seeing, the holistic benefits we need to be seeing from those projects. But I think what's interesting is Alex Bailey himself has probably had mentors. So there's that I guess that trickle down, and I hope one day myself I'll be able to mentor somebody in the smart space, but I still feel like I'm growing in that area. So yeah, the short answer is probably I've had many. I would call out a lot of my previous bosses. I know there's people on the call today from the city of Cape Town, which is where I previously worked. I had great people in that environment who were continuously pushing me, but in the right way. I never felt pressurized. I never felt like I couldn't achieve things. I guess that was a really good experience in terms of a professional environment that I was in, and then taking those opportunities, like Joukje said, and Taylor, it's being open to a change and then seeing what comes from that. And likewise, I found very similar mentors in the Anglian water space and where I'm currently working. So yeah, I don't know if it's luck or if it's just been a kind of a path that's been carved for me. Really hard question, because it's the more I think about it, I'm like, probably everybody I interact with and touch base with in some sense has mentored or coached in some form.
This network or ecosystem of mentors all kind of contributing to your growth. Yeah, great. Ariel, what's your experience been with mentoring?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that, I'm a team worker. I love to collaborate, and I really like to bounce ideas off of people. And, I think it's really great to have someone you can talk to about your ideas and thoughts and, to get a different perspective. I do think, mentors serve more than just the role of bouncing ideas, but also, provide the support you need in order to get out of your comfort zone. Because I think that is actually what my top career advice is to don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. That's where you grow. That's where you develop. And so having a mentor that can, be there to back you up or, make you feel more comfortable to get out of your comfort zone is really important. And I think that, for me, I've had really great bosses, to be honest with you. Like, I've been really very lucky. And so I'm very appreciative of, the leaders that I've had the opportunity to also be my mentors. But, that's not the only place you can find a mentor. I think another good piece of career advice that's already been mentioned is going to conferences and getting involved in science societies and networks. I've found some really great contacts that, again, have a different perspective from maybe my boss would have or that I would have, and so I think getting out there and, speaking about your work and hearing about other people's work and experiences at, within societies or conferences is a really good thing to do.
That's great. Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of different ways people have kind of gone to find mentorships to keep growing. So I think now I'm just going to start pivoting it to questions that we've had from the audience. And so notice that Kedar is on the call. He asked the question to all panelists. So whoever wants to jump on this, in your opinion, how flexible are utilities to embracing innovations, newer methods, or technologies? And I know that he's coming from Kitos, which is a technology vendor sort of in the water space. And so probably thinking about that from that lens.
I guess I unmuted first, so I can go first. I do think that utilities do tend to be pretty conservative because we are delivering water to the public, right? So we have to really be careful about, ensuring the public health initiatives and public health in general is protected. So I think that is what drives, that conservative sort of mindset. And as Joukje said, there are a lot of older folks, I would say, working in utilities that are retiring. So that also, probably makes utilities a little bit more conservative. But I do think that, with time, utilities are becoming more innovative, and we do need to have, utilities like everyone on the call is a part of that, lead and show, how innovation can be useful and make, our utilities run better and protect health even, beyond regulations and everything. But it is a reality that most utilities are conservative. So I think, but there are, like SNWA and Denver Water and American Water and there's many utilities out there that are open to innovation.
Does anyone else want to touch on that? I mean, maybe from the European side, because I know that it's kind of a different landscape than the US.
Yeah, I can completely agree in terms of what Ariel said. I guess we're heavily regulated in the UK, although we're privatized. We are governed by a number of regulators, one of which being Ofwat. But what's been really interesting in the past 2 years is that our regulator has come out with a £200 million innovation fund. So they've recognized the need that utilities need to kind of accelerate their innovation and exploration in that space. Certainly the challenges that we're experiencing are just getting harder and more complex. So it's funny how I think that landscape is changing, and it's not just coming from a push from the utility, it's actually a pull from our regulator. So that's been really, really great to see. I think within Anglian Water itself, we're very much sort of adopt a two-way approach in being both challenge-led. So we have a problem, can you solve it? Can we reach out into the external market and find something? But also an open innovation approach where, you know, that trickle-in effect of people with new things, you know, where can we fit that in? And maybe we can use that. And so we're open to both avenues. We're not very much strictly down one. And I think that's really helped in terms of exploring many areas of what's out there in the form of new technology or new process changes or just different ways of working. So, yeah.
Billy, can I just add one thing to this?
Of course.
Yeah, agree 100% with everything that's been said. And well, one, just we definitely have a biased selection of innovative utilities here, and even all of us would still, you know, like was already said, you know, still feel like there's a conservative bend to how the utilities act while being innovative. But I mean, like in the US, there's something like 50,000 utilities. So summing up innovation for all those utilities is a pretty difficult thing. And the utilities on the line here, like I said, are definitely leading the way in that innovation space. But I mean, Denver Water is the first utility that I've worked for. And I think when I started, I was getting frustrated a lot with, you know, like, why don't we just do these new ideas and try these new things? And it seems like this would work. And kind of what was already said is, you know, we are stewards of public health, and you can't just go trying things that might impact people negatively. And there's kind of like what was the like Facebook saying for innovation, like move fast and break things. Like that doesn't apply to a utility. And so there are like legitimate reasons that I'm starting to appreciate more of like why utilities need to be more conservative on the innovation side. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't always be attempting to innovate and try, you know, piloting new ideas and seeing what might work on the larger scale and scaling that up, kind of like what Anna was talking about. But there are legitimate reasons why you can't just innovate every process, every technology at once. And the thing that I hear kind of thrown around in the utility space is that utilities plan, and plan more and then act. And so when they do act, it's for a very legitimate reason. And there's been a lot of thought and testing behind that. So those are kind of my thoughts on innovation in the utility space.
And I'd like to add another thing on top real quick too. And in that, I think resources is a big thing with utilities, right? Like Denver Water, SNWA, we're huge utilities in the US. And so we have more resources and capability to take risk and innovate. The majority of utilities, at least in the US, are much smaller and have extremely limited resources. So I do think that it's important for larger utilities like us to lead and, you know, make sure that those smaller utilities, when they're going to make an investment, it's a good investment.
Yeah, this is about the last question in the chat is about this as well, I guess. This is always the bigger ones that we are hearing speaking on conferences and stuff like this, but what about the small ones? In Washington at this one conference, I was surprised to hear that I believe that 2/3 of the American drinking water companies is smaller than 1,000 connections. And it's so logical that you cannot innovate or do everything when you have only 1,000 connections. I don't know how many people are working there. It can't be a lot. So you just don't have your own data scientists. You don't have all this stuff. So yeah, Ariel, I agree. The bigger ones need to do these innovations so the smaller ones can follow. And that's also very interesting. I talked to somebody in Washington from Israel. I don't know what company it exactly was, but one of the topics in Washington was also data as a service. And this is, I guess, also different from small companies or for bigger companies. We as Vitens, we want to keep our own data, and we have our own data scientists. So we if we were working together with another company, we want to have the algorithm and do it ourselves. While lots of smaller companies, I guess, they are more into the give me the solution of the information instead of all the data. So this is different, and we have to keep this in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question of, small utilities versus large utilities in innovation, like these are not things that we can pull apart. Smaller utilities don't have the same capacity as larger utilities to innovate, to have additional capital that they set aside for research and development. And I know, Anna, in the UK, there was large amounts of consolidation. And I know that there's many reasons people don't want to do that in the US, and some people are pushing for something like that. And so I think it's kind of a moot point at the moment because the small systems are there. And the question is, how do those systems best serve their current people? But I think it's definitely integrally tied to having the capacity for innovation. So I don't know, Anna, if you want to speak on that. Just briefly, I know Alex had a question that we want to get to on mentorship.
Yeah, sure. I suppose in terms of that that spectrum of small and large, things like Swan, things like WaterStart, which we are a part of, Anglian Water at least, as well as other memberships. So we, together with Vitens and Global Omnium, another utility, we're part of what's known as the Leading Coalition. I think that's where you can start to cross those divides, I guess, through international partnerships and really being open to sharing. We've adopted very much an approach that we don't really hold IP generally when it comes to something learned through an innovation trial or through something we've implemented. We're very willing to share that with partners and with other utilities across the UK, and then now more so internationally. And I think that's where you can start to cross those divides. It's probably, I think for me, it feels like there's more of a movement for sort of collaborative advantage rather than competitive, and that's a nice thing about working in the water sector, is that you don't feel like you're head to head with Vitens or with Nevada Water, or you're very much working together, and the outcome is for both. So yeah, and that's probably a career move that I indirectly chose because I like that space of working. I'm probably not prone to being like pitted up against somebody. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers the question in any sense, but I think
that's great. So that these smaller utilities, even though they don't have the scale, there are organizations in place, there are utilities that are open to sharing IP, to sort of cross-pollinating ideas, and people can get connected that way. So to get back to, I guess, Alex's question in the chat about mentorship, this is directed to everyone. So what are your thoughts on having a manager as a mentor versus a dedicated mentor outside of your direct field of work?
I guess your manager is always a mentor. So it's not a question versus, I guess. It's a question of adding another mentor, not your own manager. Outside, it can be within the company on a different department, or really outside of your field of work. And I think it's very useful to get another insight from somebody else. It can really help you if you were trying to think what you want to do next. So I think it's very useful, but it doesn't mean your own manager isn't your mentor.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you want to, make connections broadly, and to have that, broad base of perspectives in your career. It really is invaluable, I think. But I also do, if you don't feel like your boss is being your mentor, I think you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. Are you getting what you need out of that relationship? Is there any way that you can get what you need out of that relationship? Are you developing your career in the position in the company that you're at? So I think that, at the nature of that question, I think it's important to maybe investigate that a little bit further.
That's great. So it looks like we have another question. This one, again, for all the panelists. So digital water needs computational skills, data science, machine learning being among them. So how skilled are professionals in utilities in these skills, and do you see a need for people to learn them?
Yeah, just in the last 2 weeks, I've had to read probably about 6 or 7 data scientist CVs because of the work that we're looking to implement over the next sort of 12 to 18 months. I think what's interesting is that there's probably some bigger policies at play that are driving the movement in that space. So certainly in the UK, we've got a huge push around STEM subjects and and encouraging students at junior, high, and then university level to enter into those fields, because we've recognized there's probably a gap in or at least a decrease in people going into that field or those various fields. I'm not fully sure we know what the future employee of Anglian Water looks like or what they may look like, and that's driving us to look at our apprenticeship schemes, our graduate schemes, and really look at how and what we're trying to attract into the business. Literally a month ago, we had a digital apprentice join the innovation team for the first time ever. Usually it's been strictly project managers who've done a lot of grafting, and now we're looking at where there's a real need from that digital capability space. So yeah, I think it's yes to that question, basically. Yes, we need people, and yes, we're looking at ways at how we can do that sustainably and attract the sort of the right skill set at the right time.
Perfect. Is there anyone else that wants to add on to that?
Yeah, I think there's certainly room to grow for utilities to kind of build this data science and machine learning capabilities in-house. I think that's awesome that it sounds like Anna's hiring some sort of computer scientist at the moment. And I think there will also always be a need for utilities to be able to tap into a broader network of companies and consultants with those skills. So I think often when a utility brings in an expert in this type of space, that expert might not be building an entire in-house, data science and machine learning program at their utility, but they might bring that expertise in-house to then be able to implement, the technologies that exist out in the broader world beyond the utility, to implement those within the utility. So I think there's room to sort of grow that capacity in-house, but it probably, at least not anytime soon, isn't going to be something that will be completely driven in-house by utilities. And so building that capacity is almost building that expertise to be able to communicate with the broader suite of technologies and companies working on progressing these initiatives.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. And so, yeah, I think Aaron just put in the chat, I think the prevailing wisdom is better to buy than build, at least, in the short term, to be what you're saying. I think last question, then I'm going to wrap things up. Hopefully hear from one panelist here. So question for US utility panelists. Are you noticing any impact from funds from the latest infrastructure bill? If you are, do you see any investments in innovation?
I can tackle that one real quick. Yes, absolutely. The infrastructure bill has allowed several additional grant opportunities out there from federal institutions, and we have been able to take at least the SNWA take advantage of those grant opportunities in several ways to test out and new technologies to meet specific needs. Very short answer, but
great,
to the point.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. I guess before we go, just want to say, if you're interested in this webinar, sign up for the newsletter. I put on the RiSWP page at Swan's website. So it's going to give you all the announcements we had at the beginning, any new webinars that are coming up, events, new career resources, things like that. So that's really the best way to keep getting information. So sign up at your the newsletter. As Sandy just put in the chat as well, please just give us feedback, what you liked about today, what you didn't like. Maybe you'd like to replace the host, just to get another host and improve the mentorship series. So yes, please give us your feedback. And then lastly, I just want to thank everyone for coming. Joukje, Ariel, Taylor, and Anna, just amazing set of people. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and sharing all of your knowledge and experiences. So with that, I'm gonna sign off. Thank you so much.